Don't be alarmed. White man is taking over Gully TV. Decline, okay. All right, this is Al Prophet logging in, courtesy of my guy Gully TV. Let me set up my little holder here. All right, so Mr. Gully wanted me to log in on his YouTube and answer any questions you guys might have concerning some of my documentaries and crime. Okay, hold on. I got this thing set up. All right. Jesus, this is hard. Fuck. Sorry. All right, here we go. There we go. All right. Peace, Gully TV. What's happening? FE Underdog. You're watching. Ask me a question. Let's go. You don't deal with wiggers. Okay. That's clever. Are you helping the feds? Am I? Keep them coming. All right. Peace to the guys. What up, Al Prophet? What's up, Supreme Hustle 82? Reggie 410. Thanks. Love my work. How would I help the feds when I talk about things that happened 30 years ago and were in the newspaper? It doesn't make sense. Will you do a documentary on Mickey Cogwell? Well, Mickey Cogwell is an interesting character. For those of you who don't know, he formed the what's now known as the Mickey Cobras in Chicago. And not to get in too much into the weeds with him, but there is evidence he worked extensively with Chicago's outfit, the Italian Mafia. So that would be a guy that would be interesting to do something on. But I don't have many Chicago contacts. So if somebody has some Chicago contacts they can hook me up with, let me know. Love your work. The Best Friends doc was official. Thank you. That's actually known as Rollin', the Fall of the Auto Industry and the Rise of the Drug Economy in Detroit. You can check that out on Amazon Prime for free. Boy George. I'll give you some Boy George gossip. I don't know if it's true or not, but I was talking to somebody in Terre Haute Federal Prison, and he said Boy George was having a hard time because of the publicity that he's allowed himself to get while incarcerated, and that he was forced to leave the Puerto Rican car in federal prison, and he had to, now he's with the Paisas, the Mexicans. I don't know. That's my only Boy George gossip. But I think he's going to get out relatively soon. You bought Roland, my man. Oh, Mark Jackson is full of jokes. Gully had the same dermatologist as Charlemagne. Who is this Mark Jackson character? Pistol Pete. I actually, in my documentary Streets of New York, which you can watch on YouTube, I went to Soundview Projects, and I got friends in Soundview Projects now. Those guys looked out for me. Rest in peace to P.O. the Voice, who died recently. I interviewed people that were close personal friends with Pistol Pete, and I actually met Pistol Pete's son, who was 12 years old at the time. He was playing basketball in the background, and they wanted me to interview him and put him on camera, but I wasn't going to put a 12-year-old kid whose father's associated with a bunch of murders on camera. But Pistol Pete case is pretty disturbing. He's on no human contact order in federal prison. So Pistol Pete barely can even talk to his lawyer. He can talk to no inmates. He doesn't talk to guards. The way the cells are set up and staggered in Florence ADX, if you're on no human contact, you can't even look out of your cell and see another inmate. I think he's been taking college courses through closed circuit television, but he has to submit a request to even talk to his lawyer. He's on no human contact order, which definitely sounds like cruel and unusual punishment to me, and hopefully the Supreme Court will disallow that. Yeah, he's in Supermax, but everybody in Supermax isn't on no human contact. There's only a few people. Booby Boys, Rayful Edmonds. Rayful Edmonds' case is interesting because I wouldn't be surprised if Rayful Edmonds is walking the streets right now. I mean, even though it doesn't say that in the Bureau of Prisons, because he For those who don't know, he sold more cocaine from prison than he did on the streets. Rayful, when he was sentenced to life the first time, was incarcerated with one of Griselda Blanco's sons, and then they got involved in a drug conspiracy from prison. Caught doing that, he set up a bunch of people in D.C. supposedly to keep his mother and other family members from going to prison. And then, but also Rayful's case was interesting because the government really used it as a media sensation. They helicoptered him in on a Marine helicopter every morning. They put the jury behind bulletproof glass, which is like absurd. I don't know if they thought someone was going to come into the courtroom and spray the court. And they really made him symbolize crime and crack cocaine in Washington, D.C. And it's the same thing they do with Pablo Escobar or El Chapo, where they take these guys and they make it seem like they're the reason there's drugs and crime in the street, when in reality, it's, the biggest gangsters are the people running the banks, politicians, American politicians, Venezuelan generals whose names you never heard. So that's what, in my new project, American Dope, I really focus on. I go up to the highest levels and show how political decisions are what flooded the streets. Your documentary on Darren Carlo, who worked with Jimmy Hoffa, helped make a lot of CIA connections. That's right, all roads lead back to the CIA. I don't know too much about 50 Cent Martin. Oh, somebody asked me, am I concerned for my safety? No, because I don't make stuff up. I talk about old things that are American history, and, I don't go anywhere where I'm not wanted. Do the feds ever ask you for your cooperation? Well, what's interesting is, when I do talk to police, whether it's local Detroit police or federal, they don't specifically ask me, but just like they tell me information, they think that maybe I'm friends with this one or that one, and they try to sort of engage me in conversation, but I'm not involved in any criminal activity, so I don't know what anybody does or doesn't do. But I did have an interesting experience at Detroit Police Department. I was with a friend of mine, and we were trying to get some info from the homicide detective who investigated the murder of Detroit rapper Blade Icewood. And after the police officer ran me and my friend's name and knew who we were, he was asking us all kind of questions about people that we personally know. So yeah, sometimes they do try to get information, but like I said, I'm not involved in any criminal activity, so I don't know any information other than what I read in a newspaper. Gully TV is official. He's been working very hard since he came to visit me in California. Salute, Gully. I'm glad you talked to the OBH guy, but I thought you were going to make friends, but you guys seemed on the verge of an argument. But at least that was some progress. You shouldn't. I don't like to see people on the outs with each other. Well, as far as Blade Icewood, there is a guy was convicted of killing Blade Icewood. Little Daryl. What's his name? Little Daryl. Little D. He's in Michigan's prison doing a couple life sentences. He was a hitman in Detroit. I'm not going to go into, because I know people know Blade Icewood. I'm not going to go into it all. But there was somebody convicted of killing him. He was also convicted of other murders. And what was I going to say? Something interesting about Blade. He was in a wheelchair, but he had gone to South America and gotten some cutting-edge stem cell treatment, and he was going to start walking again before he got killed, unfortunately. Do you ever cover any of the new age actively involved crews of narco gangs in Mexico and South America? No. I'm a historian. I'm not a investigative reporter. People buy and sell drugs every day as part of American life. It's not my job nor my care to figure out. I did something on Fluky Stokes that actually So go on my YouTube. I did a thing on Fluky Stokes. What I've done so many of these documentaries. The only thing that's interesting to me now is not to keep, like my friend Courtney Brown, who I did Motown Mafia with, calls it the baseball cards of gangsters. Like, well, this guy made $8 million and he made $9 million and they killed 3 people and they killed 6 people and he had 21 Mercedes and he had 26 Mercedes. I'm interested in things that are connected to American history, government corruption, the police. And as you learn about these stories farther up the food chain, there's always police corruption. There's always the government involved. In the case of Fluky Stokes was set up to be murdered by his own bodyguard. And he was under indictment at the time for a bribery case in Chicago with the police. And Fluky had his hooks deep into the Chicago Police Department. He was caught in Las Vegas. He had all the discovery evidence about the people suspected of killing his own son. And if you watch my documentary and you read my ebook, Fluky Stokes, that's on Kindle, you'll see how it kind of looks like the Chicago Police Department either set Fluky up to be killed or actually participated in getting him set up to be killed. And the Fluky Stokes case is really dark. There was this child molester, hitman snitch that's like in the middle of the whole Fluky Stokes case and the hitman and all this stuff. It's really disturbing, but you can read my ebook on Fluky Stokes on Amazon Kindle. Keep them coming. Fluky had the bread, yeah. Demond Stevens, I just subscribed. Thank you, sir. But go check me out on Amazon. That's what I get paid off of. I was telling Gully, I used to make a lot of money on YouTube, but advertisers now don't run nearly as many ads because there's so much ridiculous content on YouTube, racist, violent, etc. So these crime documentaries, because they have keywords like murder, drugs, death, they get flagged and I don't get ads. So I just put everything on Amazon. Who's Larry O? Who faked his death? Demetrius Holloway tried to fake his death in Detroit. Demetrius Holloway was probably the biggest cocaine dealer ever in Detroit history. I have it on good authority. He was getting 1,000 kilos at a time on consignment at the hub in Indianapolis, the Midwest hub for the Medellin cartel. I don't know who was... yeah, there's guys who got away with it. I mean, I think there were guys in the 70s who disappeared and who never were caught. I don't know if you could really disappear today and not be found or fake your death today, because any movement you make anywhere, there's cameras everywhere tracking us. You go into any public place, cameras see your face. I don't know who Larry O is. Yeah, the Pistol Pete and Carlton Hines thing was some sort of personal beef. I think it was just over, seemed like it was over, popularity in the Bronx, but I don't know. 85% of them old hustlers were snitching. 85% of the new ones are too. It's probably higher than 85%. What do you think about Pablo Escobar's brother wanting $1 billion from Netflix or a Narcos series? And how Netflix had to cancel filming season 2? Well, that was season 3 that they had to cancel. That's because those idiots were down in Mexico in an active drug area scouting for locations, which was retarded. And whoever that producer was that agreed to do it, they've tried to get me to do all kind of stuff for TV shows. I don't participate. They're retarded. The people that do Gangland, Drugs Inc., all of those shows are fake and stupid, and it's like 32-year-old white kids from the suburbs who read a Wikipedia article about Detroit, and then they call you and they want you to, oh, do you know this or that hitman? We'll give you $300. So I feel sorry for the family of that Narcos producer who got killed, but I don't know why somebody would go down to Mexico and be walking around in an active drug area. And as far as Pablo Escobar's brother getting $1 billion, it's absurd. He won't get 2 cents. Now, you guys aware American Dope is coming out soon? So go on Amazon around Christmas. That'll be my Christmas present to you. The letter seems to have a great story. Laurence Olivier, looking for you to find you if you fake your death. You put the money. Oh, you mean Harry O, not Larry O. Harry O. Yeah, Harry O put the money behind death row. Harry O got paid. I mean, Suge Knight doesn't have any money because there was a $115 million judgment against Death Row Records that Sharita Knight, I think Sharita Knight, Harry O's wife got. Yeah, Harry O got paid. And what did somebody just... Oh, the Flores twins in Chicago, super interesting. Those guys were bigger than BMF probably. They were getting 2,000 keys a month directly from El Chapo. And they were like 22, 23 years old. That's when Chicago became the big cocaine hub of the whole East Coast and Midwest, because they were the plug in the Midwest. And but they rolled and the Sinaloa cartel. They only got 11 years. The Flores twins might be walking around free right now, or they will be soon. I think they got 11 years and maybe like '08 or something. They might be walking around. Their father got killed down in Mexico, though. Yeah, they snitched on El Chapo. Yeah, their father got killed in Mexico. Queens was the first to turn coke to crack. No evidence points to crack being created in the Bahamas about 1979 or 80. Junior Black Mafia. I don't know too much about the Junior Black Mafia, but I know the original Black Mafia are some of the most frightening guys I ever read about. A lot of people don't know the original Black Mafia was involved in murder of a bunch of women and children at the home of the Hanafi Muslims owned by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in Washington, D.C. That was a pretty infamous, brutal case. I think that's kind of what brought about the final demise of the Philly Black Mafia, but they're definitely frightening guys. Cop Killer Queens. You must be from Queens. American Dope is going to be on AmericanDope.com website and Amazon, and it's coming out around Christmas. I'm also doing some American Dope clothes. AmericanDope.com website's a work in progress right now, but it'll be launched in a week or two. We're going to have some clothes on there. As a matter of fact, first 3 people to send me an email to alprofit9@gmail.com with your address, I'll send you an American Dope t-shirt. Wow, Cowboys 5%ers. Well, don't lump in the 5%ers with the drug gang. I mean, some 5%ers sell drugs, but the 5%ers themselves aren't specifically formed to be a criminal group. I think I made some 5%ers mad with my Supreme Team mini documentary on YouTube. But 5%ers are pretty interesting. Clarence 13X, interesting guy. Mr. Inglewood 78, I take it that's Inglewood, Chicago. Yeah, you'll like that Fluky Stokes book. I mean, I connect the dots from Fluky to Chicago police corruption to, you know, all the people getting let out of prison in Illinois off death row, because a lot of them were from that police district or area 2 on the south side, and that's what Fluky had corrupted, and that was the same place they were torturing people to get confessions. It's pretty bad. Chicago has been really corrupt for a long time. Like, no, Alpo hasn't reached out to me. I'm not. Cedric Bailey, was the CIA really involved in drugs? Well, I assume you're being sarcastic, but yeah, of course. So in American Dope, I don't interview a lot of people, but all the people I interview are strong. So one of the people I interviewed is this ex-DEA named Michael Levine. He made more undercover arrests than any DEA agent in history. And I have him in American Dope talking about 2 different instances where he personally was working a case. So one was in Chiang Mai, Thailand, where he had infiltrated in 1972 a Chinese heroin ring, and they told him, hey, on Wednesday, come up to the factory where we make 300 kilos of pure heroin a week, and we're going to start selling to you. He was going to probably make the biggest heroin bust in history. And he went into the office, and the CIA was there. I don't know who Kate 420 is. He went into the office, the CIA was there and said, you're not going up to any heroin factory. Have them bring 1 kilo to the hotel. Arrest whoever brings it, and the case is over. He had another case in South America where he infiltrated the organization of Roberto Suarez, who the character of Sosa in Scarface, the movie with Al Pacino, is based on. In 1980, he purchased 500 kilos of cocaine base in Miami for $9 million in cash, which at the time was a huge. This was before cocaine, got really big. And he arrested the nephew of the president of Bolivia, let out of jail 9 days later on orders of the CIA. CIA pulled the plug on the whole Bolivian operation because the people running Bolivia were CIA assets. U.S. business had interests in Bolivia. There's tin mining. Che Guevara, the communist leader from Cuba, was killed in Bolivia at the behest of the CIA by the Bolivian military with the help of a man named Klaus Barbie, a wanted Nazi war criminal who fled France after World War II. He had been the head of the Gestapo in Lyon, France. He was known as the Butcher of Lyon. He came to South America, and he ended up working with drug dealers in Bolivia, and he helped overthrow the Bolivian government. I'm going to do a documentary maybe next year called Nazi Kingpins, because I found out there are multiple ex-Nazis involved at the highest levels of the drug trade in the 50s, 60s, 70s, all the way up until about 1980. And a story I didn't get into in American Dope, but that was interesting. Right in the aftermath of World War II, 1946, all these huge loads of morphine, heroin, and cocaine were being found in Europe that the Nazis had because they were using it for medical purposes, and also they were giving it cocaine to the soldiers on the front line to make them, crazy and violent. And that a lot of those drugs were stolen by U.S. military and sent back to the U.S. and sold in the late 1940s. So drug business is a lot bigger than, the guy on the corner or the mob or some guy in a mink coat getting out of a Cadillac. The real business occurs in the back rooms of politicians and at the banks and etc. Stolen by who? Stolen by U.S. military, like captains who maybe were in charge of a certain area in Germany, and a hidden German base was found, and there was 1,000 kilos of morphine, and then someone knew someone in New York who was connected to the mafia, and they send the morphine over to New York. Really interesting stories. Yeah, thanks. Well, I'm actually logged in to Gully TV's YouTube account. He better change his password after, so I don't go on here and pose as him. Is the mob still around in Detroit? Absolutely. They just crowned a new boss, and Detroit's mafia, in a way, is like the most successful in the country because they really segued into being almost totally legal. And I won't say his name because he sues people, but if you go on my website, Gangster Report, my partner Scott Bernstein writes about what goes on in Detroit Mafia. But a big guy in the Detroit Mafia just sold his insurance company for $50 million legal money. Is the gay mafia real in Hollywood? Well, I don't know if it's a gay mafia, but LA and Hollywood is super weird and super gay. I don't know how much I really like LA. I mean, I'm out here working. I mean, it's cool. A lot of fake, definitely a lot of fake people out here on every level, from the lowest level to the highest level. Yeah, I got an Al Prophet Twitter account. I don't know how much I tweet. Yeah, Carlos Marcello, Cedric Bailey. Yeah, okay, so for those who don't know who Carlos Marcello is, Carlos Marcello was the longtime mob boss of New Orleans. Now, the New Orleans Mafia is really, and he is implicated in the conspiracy that led to John F. Kennedy's assassination. The Mafia in New Orleans is actually the oldest Mafia family in the country. It predates the New York Mafia. Sicilians came to New Orleans and Tampa before they went to New York. And the Mafia Commission in New York, even during the height of their power in the 50s and 60s, rotate device. Okay, I'm trying to do what this guy tells me. No, it says rotate device. We have to have it straight up, sorry. So, in the 1950s and 60s, when the Mafia Commission in New York was at the height of its power, it did not tell Carlos Marcello what to do in New Orleans. They left New Orleans alone, and I read an FBI report from the 60s. They considered Carlos Marcello the single most powerful mafioso in the United States, not Vito Genovese or Carlo Gambino or anybody. Have you ever heard of a mob in Indianapolis, or just the Klan? I mean, the tentacles of Italian organized crime stretch into almost every place in the United States. I don't know about an Indianapolis mob family. I mean, they probably Chicago or something, or Cleveland controlled them. But yeah, Indiana's a big Klan state. In the 1920s, they elected the governor of Indiana, like, marched with the Klan, like, blatantly. Trafficante over John Gotti. Oh, all day long. John Gotti was... Too bad John Gotti wasn't around in the age of social media. That would have been interesting. What would he have done? He probably would have went to prison even faster than he did. But yeah, Santo Trafficante was making power moves with the U.S. government, Cuban government. Anything new on Frank Matthews? He's still hiding out wherever he's hiding out. Akbar Prey or Frank Matthews, who was worth more? Oh, in terms of African-American drug dealers, I think Frank Matthews, for the couple years at his peak, probably stands alone. When will the Curry brothers drop? Well, the Curry brothers are doing their own documentary. I'm not working with them on that. I will tell you an interesting Curry brothers story. And this is why this drug stuff is so interesting, because it ties in so many different parts of American society. Johnny Curry is a big drug dealer in Detroit. And he claims he told Bernstein, my partner, that he got to start in a drug business getting marijuana from, I better not say his name, a very famous white rock singer from Michigan of the 1970s. I won't say his name, though. I don't want to be sued. White people like to sue people. Take it from me. Okay. Exclusive live streams from key players in the game. That would be good, Gully TV. I need a job. I'll intern. Pulse King. I tried to turn it to landscape, and then it tells me to turn it back. White Boy Rick got parole in Michigan, but, a lot of you guys might not know this. So the White Boy Rick movie is going to come out in 2018. Matthew McConaughey stars as his father. My buddy Bernstein was a consultant on the movie. I got a real inside scoop on how shady the Hollywood movie business is and how they just totally changed the stories. But so White Boy Rick got paroled in Michigan, but he had a case in Florida, and he's in Florida now finishing his time. But his case in Florida was, guess what? White Boy Rick was in witness protection with Lorenzo Fat Cat Nichols from Queens. and they were Lorenzo's sons were involved in stealing cars and retailing them. And Lorenzo and White Boy Rick were convicted of helping sell those cars over the phone from witness protection in Florida. So Rick has to serve time now in Florida. I think he has about 2 years. But he's out of Michigan. Oh, we're almost up to 100. Let's go. 97. Al Prophet. Go on Amazon, buy something, watch something. All my stuff's on Amazon Prime for free. So you can watch it for free if you're an Amazon Prime member, but I get paid a royalty. So it's a win-win. You get free entertainment. I get a couple bucks. Let's go. More questions. Oh, somebody asked me about the Curry brothers. The Curry brothers were brothers in Detroit who were targeted by the feds in 1983, and their organization was infiltrated by the 14-year-old white boy Rick Wershey. Johnny Curry was married to the mayor of Detroit's niece, Coleman Young. When Johnny Curry went away to prison, white boy Rick started dating the mayor's niece. White boy Rick was 16, she was 25. When white boy Rick got life in prison, he set up a bunch of Detroit police officers, including some relatives of the mayor of Detroit. He told them that he met some Colombians in prison and that they needed, I don't know why Al Sharpton knows members of the Gambino crime family. I think Al Sharpton's definitely telling. White boy Rick told these Detroit police he met Colombians in prison and that they needed cocaine shipments guarded from Detroit Metro Airport, and they did it, and a bunch of them got, I don't know anything about the Bay family other than watching them on YouTube. White boy Rick got a bunch of Detroit police sent to prison for a long time for guarding drug shipments, and that's why he was hated by the criminal justice infrastructure of the state of Michigan, and they would not give him parole. But here's something weird. Jimmy Harris, who was one of the police officers convicted, and I'm friends with his son on social media, I think. He got a long prison term, and his prison term was commuted by George Bush when he was president. So I don't know what connection a Republican president has to a black police officer from a Democratic city like Detroit. Makes you wonder what goes on behind the scenes. Or maybe, he did, I was told he did a lot of good work in prison with helping other inmates, and he went blind in prison, so he was pardoned. I don't know. The whole white boy Rick case, I could talk for hours. It's really dark and corrupt. And again, I'm really more interested now in the police and government corruption, because the guys on the streets come and go. Anybody watching this stream right now, you could take $6,000, you could get in your car, you could drive to Tijuana, Mexico, you could hang around in a bar, meet some Mexican, get a kilo, stuff it in your pants, walk across the border, go back to your home city, cook it up, stand at the corner store, sell nickel rocks, make $100,000, and you'd be the dope man. But that's here nor there. I'm kind of losing interest in all these same guys over and over. It's really about the politics. When my mom was the mail lady on the east side during the Chambers Brother reign, she was on video delivering mail from the tapes. They got busted. That's funny. Yeah, I did extensive interviews with Billy Joe Chambers. And that's going to be coming in season 2 of American Dope, early 2018. I actually went down to Arkansas, where they're from, did a lot of interviews. So they gave me great access. Billy Joe Chambers is a great guy. Salute, shout out Billy Joe Chambers. He's one of the guys who, despite he was a real crack kingpin, they were making $250,000 a day. He didn't seem like a bad guy. I doubt if he ever killed anybody. I think he was selling weed in the early 80s in Detroit, and he was just around when crack popped off, and he was just there. And suddenly you go from making $1,000 a day to $100,000 a day because everyone turned into crackheads. I mean, I can attest to that. When I was, 12 or whatever, in 1987 I was 12. I mean, it seemed like every other adult in my neighborhood in Detroit was smoking crack. Crazy Joey Gallo, he was Nicky Barnes' contact to the mafia. What's your YouTube boss? My YouTube is Al Prophet. Cliff Jones. Cliff Jones, alleged hitman from Detroit, convicted of a drug conspiracy in the 90s. He served about 20 years. He got out a couple, for all of you would-be street guys out here, let me watch it. Let me tell you a story. Cliff Jones was somebody the feds wanted to give life in prison to. They couldn't convict him of any murders. I think he got a drug charge. He did about 20 years. On the transport bus, leaving federal prison to go to the halfway house or whatever you do when you get out of federal prison, they sat a federal agent next to him who told him, I can get you some cocaine. Set Cliff Jones up some kilos, and Cliff Jones is back in prison right now. So they had an undercover on the transport bus from federal prison. So next time some guy strikes up conversation with you about some drugs, think twice. Harry O. What I read, he was the money behind death row, and that's actually been adjudicated in court. The judge found that, yes, Harry O put the money up, and Harry O and his wife got a judgment, and that's why Suge Knight didn't really have any money, because all the death row royalties flow through to Suge Knight. And I don't think David Kenner, the lawyer, gets any money from death row either, because David Kenner, see now here, we want to talk about a real gangster. Los Angeles lawyer David Kenner. Read about him, the death row lawyer. Craig Petty's from Memphis. Huge drug dealer. He was working directly with La Barbie, who was a white-looking guy from Texas who looked like the Ken Barbie doll. He had like blonde hair and green eyes, but he was a very high-ranking member of one of the big Mexican cartels, Killer. And when Craig Petty's was wanted in the United States, he actually hid out in Mexico, and he lived with La Barbie down in Mexico. Petty's was getting thousands and thousands of kilos. Petty's is doing life, but he debriefed. I think he gave some kind of information, but the Bureau of Prisons still shows that he has life. I don't know why these guys would tell and not get out. Hey, if I'm going to tell, I'm going home. But I think that the Bureau of Prisons probably, for a lot of these guys, we were talking about Rayful Edmonds earlier, it says they're doing life, or it gives you some type of vague thing, but they may be walking around somewhere, because I can't imagine a guy makes a deal to, give information about all kind of stuff up and down the food chain from Memphis to Mexico City, and he's still sitting in prison. You have to be pretty stupid to do that, but who knows? But supposedly Craig Petty's is in prison. Death row was a CIA front. No. Jimmy Burke. Jimmy Burke was the guy that, what's his name? Robert De Niro played in Goodfellas. And Jimmy Burke is suspected of being involved in 60 murders in real life. A true serial killer. A lot of those mafia guys are serial killers. If you kill 50 people, you're a serial killer. Like this video, everyone. All right, we're at the 40-minute mark. This has been awesome. I gotta go touch some women and count some money. Live the Al Prophet daily lifestyle. But thanks for all the great questions, you guys. Jimmy Hoffa's dead, and he doesn't exist anymore. They burned his body up within an hour of him dying. Appreciate you, Gully TV, and let's do this again sometime. I got American Dope coming. Go to AmericanDope.com. Remember, email me, alprophet9@gmail.com. 3 free t-shirts. I'm gone.